Hello, thank you for joining me to check out a video that some people suggested I react to, and those people were Blue Fox Studios and Gabriel D. Consiglio, and the actual video that they suggested I react to is titled Why Edward is My Favorite Character in Thomas and Friends, Sodor's Finest, which was uploaded on March 23rd of 2023. The video duration is 11 minutes and 42 seconds, and the video description gives a brief history of the video as well as a list of songs used in the video, and the video itself was uploaded by the Unlucky Tug, so I'll have the video linked as well as the channel, so if you want to check out either of those sources, those will be in the description for you. Also in the description, if there's anything in this content I feel like someone might want to be warned about, I'll mention that in the description as well. And then in the comment section, I'll pin a small little comment with the different like timestamps and segments of this video. So if there's really only something specific that you want to watch from this, feel free to interact with that if you want to. But I believe that's all the early like pre-warning stuff and information, so let's actually check out the video itself. Oh, it's a different song. I thought it was something else. That's okay. We love atmospheric like rain noises.
On the way home, however, the weather changed. Wind and rain buffeted Edward. His sanding gear failed, his wheels slipped, and his fireman rode in front, dropping sand on the rails by hand.
Why? I guess just to keep them safe or something?
Come on! Come on, panted Edward breathlessly. This is dreadful.
He sounds ancient.
But there was worse to come.
R.I.P.
Before his driver could check them, his wheels slipped fiercely again and again.
How many times has he crashed?
With a shrieking crack, something broke and battered his frame and splashes up and out of
And
shape.
he died. R.I.P. I know he's like old, so I'm guessing that's gonna be like one of the main points of the video. Like he just whoa.
The passengers gathered round while the crew inspected
That
the damage.
looks bad.
Repairs took some time. One of your crank pins broke, Edward.
It looks
said his
more
driver
than
at
that.
last. We've taken your side rods off. Now you're a single, like an old-fashioned engine.
Isn't he already old
Can you
though?
get these people home? They must start back tonight. I'll try, sir. Promised Edward.
He is so nice. He just seems like a nice guy. A nice engine.
I originally wrote the script for this video with the intention of it being an M-tax for Edward's exploit. But the more I kept writing, the more I realized what I had to say was more about Edward himself than I did the actual episode.
Isn't that the point?
I said I wanted to cover Edward at some point in Sodor's Finest, so let's do it.
Good.
Edward the Blue Engine is my favorite character in Thomas and Friends.
Good.
I spelled out before why I think Gordon is the most important
Because
character
he's
in the
big
series,
and stuff.
especially in the Railway series. But most important and favorite aren't the same thing.
Yeah.
A favorite is a personal preference for your own reasons.
Mm-hmm.
The most important character in Star Wars is Anakin, but my favorite is the Emperor.
That's
the most
interesting.
important character in Lord of the Rings is Frodo.
But your favorite?
But my favorite is Gandalf.
Well, mine would be
Gordon
Sam,
is the most
probably.
important character in the Railway series, but Edward is my favorite.
He's just so nice, from what I've seen
I'll now
anyways.
explain who and what Edward is.
He is a locomotive.
Edward was the first character created by Wilbert Audrey.
For real?
That's right, not Thomas. It was Edward.
I feel like I've heard
Edward
this,
is the
but
oldest
I don't
one
remember.
of the main group. He's an aged sage, wise and experienced.
Old man.
And always the voice of reason. He keeps the others in order and isn't afraid to get snappy when they're acting like dumbasses.
That's good.
He's been around forever.
Keep him in
and
check.
He's seen it all. The type of engine Edward is plays such a crucial role in what he represents. He's a 440, which was, at one point in time, the top link steam locomotives used
It's
on
so
express
pretty.
passenger trains.
I like the
They
illustrations
were the greatest
and
thing
the
at
real
time,
photos.
but they were subsequently replaced by bigger engines that came later. In the time placement of the series, Edward is portrayed as outdated, which was the whole point of his
He's a
intro. in the
boomer,
very first
dude.
story,
He's part of
but
the
was still very
silent generation
capable
for real.
of handling the work given to him. Edward is a mirror to everyone else, especially Gordon.
'Cause
I
Gordon
love
is
their
annoying.
dynamic so much. Because what Gordon is in present day of the series is what Edward was in yesterday.
So he's watching everyone
Gordon
get
was
like
put in the same
upgrades.
position at the very end of the Railway series that Edward was at the very start.
Now they're
Edward
just
has
all
lived
old.
Gordon's life. He was a Top Link Express engine at one point. This brings so much weight to their conversations. It's why Edward chuckles when Gordon or others are being asshats. Because he's been there.
The
He
Fat
can humble
Controller
them
would
real quick.
never approve, huffed Gordon. Edward chuckled and followed him to the station.
He's just
Edward
a nice
is
guy.
what Gordon and the others will become later in time. Experienced, aged, matured.
More
Edward's role
chill.
in the series is pretty constant. Some people have said he's stronger as a side character than a main.
Yeah.
And I agree with this to an extent.
He's not super, like,
at his
loud,
strongest when
which
he
is nice.
reprimands others for their actions or gives solid advice to a story's protagonist. There's very few stories that are actually about Edward. When you think about it, most if not all of Edward's stories are about other characters. Edward and Gordon is a story about Gordon. Cows is about Gordon and Henry.
And cows.
Saved from Scrapped is about Trevor. Old Iron is about James. All of the stories in Edward's own Railway series book are about other characters, with Edward just as a
Because he's just, like,
constant
helping
figure in
out,
them
and he's,
his
like, doing a
effect on them.
great job.
This is true for classic series originals too. Like, Edward, Trevor, and the Really Useful Party is about Trevor. Edward, the Really Useful Engine is mostly about Gordon. In the Brenner era, Old Reliable
That's
Edward
really cool
is, again,
animation. I like that.
about Gordon. PA Problems is about Sir Topham Hatt. The only episode that is fully about Edward in the Brenner era is the one where they write him off the show.
Oh, he
Hey, did
gets
you guys
to
know that I
leave?
actually f***ing hate this episode? I don't think I've ever mentioned that before. We get Edward episodes in the Hit
Genuinely
era,
upset.
but I don't even count these because his character is just completely and utterly wrong to the point where I don't even consider it Edward. I detest Edward in the Hit era because he's usually always portrayed as old and
Because
pathetic.
that's kind of
and
what he
full of
is, though. He
self-doubt.
is old, but being
Edward the
pathetic
Great is the
isn't
only one I would
necessarily
call decent,
an
but it still
automatic
suffers
thing.
from the fact everyone thinks Edward is a pathetic loser.
Edward is a waste of steam. he
so
sniffed.
rude.
And then you get
Literally.
ones like Edward Strikes Out, where Edward just acts like a total asshole for no reason.
Maybe because he's fed
This
up
isn't
with everything.
Edward, this is just like James wearing Edward's skin. As far as I'm concerned, the only
That's
eras
another
that get
AU.
Edward correct are the classics and the Brenner era to an extent, where he's aged, wise, and experienced.
He's chilled out.
And that is where I can understand the struggle that comes with writing for him. Stories with lessons come from having a flawed protagonist that makes a mistake and learns from it, and thus the audience as well. You can't write Edward as super flawed because then he'd be out of character, as
That's
per the
true.
Hit era. So since
That's
it's in Edward's
interesting that
character
they
to
made
not
that
make
change.
mistakes, he has very few stories. Some people might say that makes Edward a bland, half-baked, uninteresting character.
Well, he's just
since there's not
productive and
really
does what he
that
needs
much
to
him
do, I
on the
guess.
surface. And to that, I wholeheartedly disagree. And that brings us to Edward's exploit. The only story in the classic series, and the only story written by Audrey, barring the very first one, that is 100% fully about Edward.
Because it has his
Edward's
name in the
exploit
title.
is
Ooh.
fantastic. It's one of the best episodes of the show. But I actually think it doesn't translate the original story to screen as well as it could have. And I understand that's partly to the limitations of what they could do with models at the time. Edward's trial in the original story
That
was
looks
so much
terrible.
more dire. In this
That looks
story,
like me
Edward
when
is
my
trying
back
to get a
pops,
train of
for
enthusiasts
real.
home during a bad storm. It's an enthusiast train, and it's packed to the brim. As per enthusiast trains of the 60s, I imagine it's a rank
Enthusiast
of about
train?
5 or 6 coaches or so. The illustrations depict them as bogey coaches, so
Intense
they're
music.
not small. It's storming out, rain is pelting down, the wind is trying to blow Edward backwards, and all the while he's struggling to get this
Dude
heavy
looks
train
heated,
uphill.
for real.
Edward
Legitimately.
pushes himself
He looks
so
stressed.
hard he snaps a crank pin,
That's
which causes
tough.
his side rod to go
That looks
flying
actually
and rip
very
his whole side
dangerous.
apart. The crew is forced to take off his side rods, rendering one of his 2 driving axles unusable.
That's tough, bro.
Hence why they call him a single. Edward is tasked with the greatest trial he's ever been put in. To get a heavy packed train home with only 1 powered axle, that's only half his pulling power, going uphill on wet rails with the wind pushing him.
And then apparently
The crew
someone
tries
throwing like
everything
sand.
to get him moving, backing him down, putting sand on the rails, loosening
Yeah,
the couplings. But no matter what they try, Edward can't get the train moving.
I would assume, and
It's
that's
in this
fair.
moment you'd think they would give up and call for a replacement engine. If this was James, surely that's what would have happened. He would have
'Cause
thrown in
James
the
is
towel
annoying.
the moment his side got messed up. Would Thomas have kept going?
Maybe.
I doubt it.
Oh,
Gordon? Henry?
probably.
Unlikely.
Oh.
This is where Edward's character triumphs.
Oh, he just like pushes
He keeps
through.
pushing himself.
Oh, good for
He
him.
keeps trying, and he never once stops to contemplate defeat. Through gritted wheel slip, he finally inches his train forward. Once it's going, it's a celebration. He's
Success, bro.
excited. His driver is shouting. The people in the coaches are hanging out the sides, cheering.
So then
It's
that
a
just means
huge
every other
triumphant moment
character
when
in the
Edward
series
finally
is
moves that
extremely
train.
weak,
And
'cause they
it's
can't
from
do
this
that.
moment on that all the engines, including Gordon
Respect
and James,
him.
learn to respect him.
Respect
Edward
your
never
elders
gives up.
is the
He's
message
this
of
series'
that.
Captain America. An old, outdated engine that realistically should have been scrapped 40 plus years prior, but is still
Why don't-
around because he
How to
just
Train Your Dragon
keeps
music.
going.
That's
It's
amazing.
a crucial aspect of Edward's character that separates him from everyone else. He will wear himself out to bits to the point of total overhaul to save a friend in need. He'll push that heavy train to the top of the hill even when he's the only one trying, and he'll literally rip himself to bits to ensure his passengers' safety before he throws in the towel. And even then he won't, because he refuses to. Despite all adversity, Edward never ever gives
He
up.
perseveres, which
And
is
that
nice.
is why Edward the Blue Engine
Is
my
your favorite.
favorite character.
That's a good essay.
So with the fireman standing carefully in front,
That sounded
the
like an
driver
AI
gently
voice for a
opened the
second.
regulator. Come on, puffed Edward. He
Oh, is
moved
this just
cautiously
showing how it
forward,
went? Okay.
ready to
'Cause I
take
don't
the
think I've ever
strain
seen
as his
this.
tender coupling tightened against the weight of the first coach. The first coach moving helped to start the second. The
Are
second
they
helped
just
the
using
third.
like spray bottles
so
on this
down the
like
train.
the set? Because I wouldn't know how you would do that.
I've done it! I've done it! Puffed Edward, his wheels spinning with excitement.
Good for him.
Steady, boy, warned his driver, skillfully checking the wheel slip. Well done, boy. You've got him. You've got him.
Can they actually
listen
talk
carefully
to the
to Edward's
locomotive?
steady
Like, do the
beat
engines
as he
hear that
forged
and they
slowly
respond
but
to
surely
it? Like, I know
up the
they
hill.
talk to Sir Topham Hatt. Does like all the people characters, the humans,
The
actually
passengers
like they're okay with them
Most
talking
of
to
them
each
ended up
other?
with
That's
it.
interesting.
They waved and shouted, cheering Edward on.
Happy, good ending. Yay.
The Fat Controller paced the platform. Henry with the special train waited anxiously too.
To see if
They
he
heard
would
a
make it, they didn't have any faith.
Then,
R.I.P.
battered, weary but unbeaten, Edward steamed in.
He is tired and messed up. Bro's
The
gotta
Fat
take like
Controller stepped
holiday.
angrily forward. He pointed to the clock. The excited passengers swept him aside. They cheered Edward, his driver
Yeah,
and fireman. to
why
the
would he
echo
be angry?
Before
He
rushing
made
off
it.
to get in Henry's train.
That's cool to end the video on that. That's like a nice, sweet little touch to actually show what the whole thing was about. Because I genuinely don't think I've seen that before. Very nice. So first things first, I would have to definitely agree with the Unlucky Tug that I don't think I've seen many like Edward-focused things from the franchise or from the community in general. Which with what the Unlucky Tug said, I guess more people see Edward as a side character because he's not super loud. He's not like a super young and very energetic engine, I guess. So it's easier to make videos and content and episodes about characters who are super loud and outgoing and stuff like Thomas. Whereas you have Edward who seems relatively chill. But then like this video said, it is really cool to see characters that are chill and that don't get as much recognition actually get some spotlight. Like he was giving examples of episodes that have Edward's name in the title, but he's not really the focus of them. So to have an episode that features him doing something really crazy that other engines apparently wouldn't do is very cool. Which I personally don't know that much about Edward's character, but the fact that the Unlucky Tug was kind of able to explain it as being very chill is nice because I feel like you always need a character that kind of mediates everyone and keeps them happy to a degree, but then kind of can like take control and keep things moving forward. So he's very nice as like a placeholder character to have everyone not go crazy, so that's cool. I feel like I've been told that Edward was the first character created in like the Thomas and Friends franchise and brand and stuff, but I did not remember that. So it's kind of cool that like he's the oldest character or one of the older like locomotives in the series, but just in the history of the franchise overall. I think that's cool. With the actual video itself, I feel like the Unlucky Tug always does a fantastic job of formulating his videos like they're essentially essays kind of. Because specifically with the Sodor's Finest series that he's done, it seems like he's arguing points and making cases for the different characters he features. Like this one was explaining why Edward is like his favorite character, and he explained that by giving examples and stuff, so done very well. And I really liked how there was kind of a switch between using like film stuff, but then also including pictures from like the Railway series books, because I like looking at those illustrations and stuff. It's really cool. But then he also pulls in like quotes and scenes from both of those materials, so it helps to back up and make cases and claims for his points, which is really cool. And then in general, with the background music and stuff that was included, that's always fun because you can kind of pick up on some that are familiar. Like there was the one from How to Train Your Dragon. I eventually picked that up. But it kind of just keeps you focused to like listen to what's being told and explained in the video. So I like the choices that were made there. I mean, if I had to make a claim for my favorite Railway series character, it'd probably be Toby, but that's really only because my dog's name is Toby. So that's my answer, I guess. But that's essentially the reaction, and once again, I'll have the channel tagged and the video linked, so if you want to check out either of those sources, they'll be in the description, but I believe that is it. So thank you very much for watching. Bye!